All right, folks. Next up, we have the 2026 intermediate sequence. You can see I've made some notes on the sequence sheet there on the left, and we'll go through some of those things, but um, it's my opinion. Some of these need to be tall to make sure you don't have to rush them and run out of airspace or altitude. But as always, we're going to run through sequence start to finish, and then we'll go over some things. So first maneuver is the figure in. I'm gonna go just past center box. I'll pull to the vertical, pull to the 45, pull to the vertical, and then pull to an inverted exit. And we got the laid down Humpty, pull to the 45, one full roll, pull half inside loop, another 45-degree upline. We'll make this one tall. And we got the reverse half Cuban, push to the 45, 4 of 8. I'm gonna push 5/8 outside loop, 3 of 4 opposite 3/4 on exit. Into a 1.5 turn positive spin, the opposite 2 of 4. So there's the 1.5. Oh, it's the 2 of 4. Push to an inverted exit. And we have the hammerhead. This is one that you're definitely going to have to make tall here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then hammer. I'll tick off the 2 of 4 pretty quick so we can push to the 45. Half roll. And then pull to negative. You can still see I almost ran out of altitude there and still had to rush it. So that one's definitely something to be mindful of. Then we got the Q loop, the 4 of 8 on the 45. Push the top here with one negative snap on top. And a half roll on exit. We got the double Humpty. I'm going to go quarter roll right, and I'll go over that and why in just a second. Pull half inside to the vertical down line, one positive snap. Then we're going to pull back to the vertical upline. We're going to go 2 of 8 to the left. We're going to pull to an inverted exit. And then fairly quickly into a down line with a 4 of 8. Pull to an upright exit. Into lay down Humpty with a big pull. I'm going to make this nice and tall here. 1.5 roll. We're going to push half outside loop. 45. 2-point roll or 2 half rolls. And push to an inverted exit. And then the roller. Ooh, that got ugly. All right, out of the box. All right, so I think the figure in is pretty self-explanatory. Um, just be mindful, it's pretty easy to get steep on that 45. Um, take it just past you to start that vertical so that it's nice and centered in front of you. But be mindful right here, this 45 is easy to get steep. And then make sure you're using that rudder correction to hold your line in that 204. And then we're going to pull it to an inverted exit. And then the lay down Humpty, also be mindful here not to get this 45 too steep. And then to use your rudder and elevator corrections, just it doesn't take much. But if you don't use that rudder and elevator correction, same here with this 2 of 2, it's just a little bit, you'll lose that 45-degree line. And I can show that to you real quick. Let's put smoke on. So if I pull this 45 and I don't use any correction, you can see how I lost my 45 there. In the same way on this 2-point, if I pull to the 45 and use no correction, you can see how the 45 got ever so slightly more shallow there. So make sure you're using your corrections, and especially right here with this down reverse half Cuban on this 4 of 8, just a little bit of rudder, then enough to hold that. And it's kind of incremental with that 4 of 8. You need a little bit on the first point roll, you need a little bit more for the second, and then back to a little bit less on the third. So let me try to show that a little bit better, what I'm trying to say here. So we're pushing down. So watch my rudder stick just a little bit more, a little bit less, and then back to the down elevator to hold that 45. If you don't add those subtle corrections, you're going to lose your 45-degree line, just like we talked about in the other maneuver. And the same with that 3 of 4 and the 3/4 roll. You need those minute rudder and elevator adjustments to make sure you don't lose your line. Um, the spin's pretty self-explanatory. Intermediate guys should be not having a lot of trouble with their spins. Um, just make sure after you do the 1.5 turn spin, you're reestablishing that down line, and then tick off your 2 of 4, and then push to an inverted exit. And then here's the big one I think is going to be a challenge to get enough room here. We want to have plenty of space here. So that, and we're going to be pretty quick with the 2 of 4. Still needs to be centered so that you have room to establish that 45 and execute the half roll. So be mindful of that on the hammerhead. You need to make that one tall. And then the Q loop, same thing here, a little bit of rudder, a little bit more, a little bit less. Back into the down elevator, you can see that holds that 45 nice and straight there. And then be patient with this negative snap. Wait till you get to the top, just like that. I see a lot of um, in the sportsman and intermediate classes when these kind of avalanches, if you will, get introduced. A lot of people they'll just rush it. They'll get to like right here, they'll do the negative snap, and then they'll push around. And that's not centered on top of the loop there. So again, we want to pull to that 45, using our rudder to hold that line. And then be patient here because it's going to take some time to get to the top of that loop to center that negative snap. And then just half roll on exit. All right, and then the double Humpty. I chose to quarter roll right because one, I think this is easier. You can see the canopy there instead of having to see the tail. And then I think this positive snap is easier in this direction. And so that's why I chose to go that way. Um, and the 2 of 8, and the pull to the inverted exit. You can very well go the other way if that's more comfortable. So if we go the other way, you're going to pull to the vertical. You're going to roll quarter roll left, but then you have to see the belly, and a lot of people struggle with that. And then the positive snap from this direction, I don't like it as much, but that's just personal preference. I think it's harder to hit for whatever reason, but that could just be me. And then the 2 of 8 really doesn't matter on this one, but that's why I chose to go quarter roll right and bring that double Humpty in. Um, just my 2 cents on that. I think quarter rolling right here to see the canopy is a lot easier direction for most folks. And then for whatever reason, this snap is more comfortable for me seeing it in that direction. And then the 2 of 8 um, really doesn't make a difference which direction you go there. You just have to the 2 of 8 just has to be the correct direction depending on which way you went with the quarter roll so that you exit inverted there. All right. And then so when you come out of that, we're going to go fairly quickly into the down line with the 4 of 8. And that's why you want to make that 2 of 8 line tall in the double Humpty. I like to pull throttle and slow down some airspeed here so that you're not going so fast come into the down line, because you are going to pick up a lot of airspeed on that down line. And to present that 4 of 8 well, you want to make sure that you have the space for it. So I'm gonna go back into the last part of the double Humpty here. We're making this nice and tall so that when I exit inverted and I pull my throttle back, slow down. I'm not going into a spin. I don't want to lose my line there, but I want to slow down just enough that I have plenty of room. And you see, I still had to rush that. Um, and I am flying a little bit lower in the simulator than I would in real life, just for demonstration purposes. But let's try it one more time. The simulator is getting real jumpy on me for some reason. So bear with me on that. It's really hard to fly precision when the screen is jumping like that. So I'm gonna throttle back. I'm gonna slow down just a little bit, pull to my vertical. There, that was better. You can see why having that extra space is nice there. And then for the lay down Humpty, same thing here. We want to make this nice and tall. And the main reason there is so that when you have to push this half outside loop here, you're losing altitude, obviously. So you're starting this next 45 much lower than your other 45. So you want to make sure you have room to draw a line and center that 2-point roll. And then also on that maneuver, let me turn back around here. Same thing with the other, just like the other roll elements on the 45s, we want to make sure we're using our rudder, elevator corrections to hold that 45. If you don't, it's just going to look like this. You see, you slowly lose that 45 if you don't use those corrections. And then you have a nice long 45 to draw your 2-point roll or your 2 half rolls, center them and exit without having to rush it. And then the roller. Probably not good to do with smoke on there. I couldn't see the plane. But you can see my note there. We need to lead with the left rudder if you're going this direction. Um, that can be one of the most difficult parts of doing an inverted roller. It's a lot harder to kind of visualize the rudder that you need. So I made the note. So we're going to start with left rudder. and immediately transition to right rudder as we get to that knife edge position. And then just continue our inputs to complete the one roll in that 90-degree turn. We'll come back a little closer so we can see it here. All right, so we're inverted. I'm going to lead with left rudder as I push and then right into the right rudder, carrying that right rudder until I'm flat, back to the left rudder, and I've completed the 90-degree turn with one full roll. And if you fly the other direction, obviously you're going to lead with right rudder instead. So if we're going this way, I'm going to start with right rudder, right into the left rudder, right back to right rudder, and exit inverted to complete the roller. A lot of things we see with those rollers are some of the stuff you just saw me do. Um, there's a lot of altitude changes. You start that and you gain altitude, and then you lose the altitude, and then you pick it back up, and then you back over like that. I mean, that's just burning gas and getting time and comfort with what your plane needs. I have found that on that first like 30 degrees maybe of the turn, um, you want to carry that down elevator right here a little bit longer than you think to keep it from gaining that altitude. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people have issues with um, gaining altitude in that roller right there is they start the roll and then they don't hold the down elevator there long enough, and you get kind of that looking roller. You want to, and it depends on the plane, but this is um, a fairly general thing I see with all rollers. That down elevator to start the roll here, we want to hold it until we're back level flight there. That can also depend on if you've got a good rudder to aileron and elevator mix. That can go in and set up, if you fly knife edge, you want your plane to fly knife edge hands off. Let's see, this one kind of wants to roll out and pitch to the gear a little bit. And that's something that can affect your roller. You also want to maybe do some flat turns with your rudder and see what the plane likes to do. See, this one wants to come to the gear and roll out. And that's stuff you need to mix out with your radio with a knife edge, where the rudder to elevator and aileron mix, and that will greatly help your rollers as well. But carry that down elevator longer than you think there till it's horizontal, then you can switch to complete that 90-degree roller like that. And that's pretty much all I have for the intermediate sequence this year. Um, I might do an advanced and unlimited video just to demonstrate the sequence. I don't really feel like the advanced and unlimited guys need any help from me. um, but I think it'd be cool to just have a demonstration video of the two sequences. Um, but as always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see you on the next video.